All right, it's mid-May and it's time for an update on the garden. Come join me in the chaos. All right, so this is teasing my wife a little bit, so she recommended I go from biggest to smallest. So in this video, I'm gonna kind of go with big things like trees and end with some of the smaller things. So first up is my 120-year-old walnut tree. I'm just teasing. But yeah, it's humongous, but it's not really much to look at. But let's talk about my pear trees. All right, so over here I have my grafted pear trees. A little bit of these little suckers to take off, but last year, that's what I got to last year with this scion. And then this year I decided to add some to this side because the one on this side had failed. So this is what they look off when they first break buds. And this is kind of what they look like. For some reason, this one broke buds about 2 weeks before this one. So believe it or not, going from here to here, I mean, that's like a foot of growth in a matter of like 2 weeks, which is insane. But this is like very vegetative, I guess, very floppy. So these are all pear scions that I grafted last year. And one of them has little pear fruits. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, I passed it. You can see the little pears. So the rootstock here is Bradford. The one everyone says are worthless and terrible, and no offense, but they're amazing rootstock. So that's just 2-year-old scion, or second-year scion. So not much this year, but I'm sure next year it'll do better. One of these actually failed. We had a really windy storm yesterday, so I decided to reinforce them. So I put a 4-inch screw into the trunk. So if you've done this, you'll know that when you have a 20-year-old rootstock and you top work and put a new scion in, they just grow incredibly fast. The scion will push, or the rootstock will push everything it's got into those scions, and they just grow so incredibly fast that you got to make sure they're strong enough. So they're all doing pretty amazing. And I tried to keep it diverse. Each tree has a Bartlett, an Anjou, and an Asian pear. So these trees are going to look hilarious with all the different types of pears growing on them. But as you can see, they are doing a really good job at what they are doing, growing. While I'm standing here, got raspberries everywhere. These were suckers off of the ones back there. Apple, black cherry, plum, Nanking cherry. Along this fence, I took a bunch of elderberry cuttings in the early spring, and the elderberries are doing pretty decent. Elderberry. So if you're local, I gave, I don't know, probably a couple dozen people I gave elderberry cuttings to. So some of you might be watching this, so let me know how those things turned out. There's one of my grape cuttings. So that was a grape cutting from my vineyard. We'll get to that. Blackberries. Those are black raspberries, I believe. So this is black elderberry, black lace elderberry. Gooseberry. Gooseberries are doing a lot better this year. Last year they just barely grew. Like the entire year they probably grew like 4 or 5 inches. I don't know why. But man, this year, that little, I might actually snap that tip off. So an easy thing you can do if you want more branching and less vertical growth is just kind of take the tip off, if you don't know that. And that'll cause it to branch out. Blueberries. I love how big these lilies got this year. I'm more of like a foodscaper type, but kind of put the bulbs in to make my wife happy. Last year, they were tiny, like that guy right there. Now this year, it's like double the height. I mean, that's like almost up to my shoulders. So it's amazing how much better they're doing this year. More elderberry. And these are all bush cherries. My plan here is to do like a little hedge just to kind of square off the house right here. You can kind of read my body language here. So I'm kind of letting them go this year, but come winter I'm going to prune these back and create like a hedge, and then work more on the head shape once they get more established. Back here, black raspberries. So they're very red right now, but believe it or not, those bright red berries are going to change color when they ripen. Like if you look back here, that's an example of a few different stages of the growth of these raspberries. So the more whitish pink ones are newer, and then as they get more mature, they go a deeper red, and then finally that dark, almost black color. It's like a dark purple, but it looks black from far away, especially in contrast with the green and the reds. So that's a lot of berries. Some garlic up here. We had a little class yesterday, so that was a lot of fun, just walking around and having a question and answer session / tour with a bunch of friends from church. Got an elderberry right here, and I have some garlic kind of mixed in with my gladiolas. The gladiolas are the flat looking ones, like this one right here is kind of flat looking, and then there's a gladiola here, but just in front of the gladiola is garlic. So garlic here, gladiola here, gladiola with a garlic on that side, and then a whole bunch of lilies. And then I took some of the suckers from my black raspberry and planted it. There's a few of those, and then all the way out past those trees, a whole bunch more. Here's a blue spruce, a little Christmas tree. My wife wanted to get a little Christmas tree going, so that was the biggest one I could find. It's kind of sad right now, but in a few years it'll be big enough we can put lights on it or something. And yeah, this was like one plant last year, so if you've been watching my channel, started off I think 2 years ago, and this is a strange mutation. So last year this branch right here fruited, and again this branch again for a second year in a row, the main part's not fruiting, but it put off a bunch of side shoots. So I think this is a mutation. I'm kind of excited about that. So it gives fruit on the florocanes and then for a second time on the florocanes. So it's like a double, like a biflorocane fruiting black raspberry. I don't know if you know what I mean. Usually you only get fruit on second year canes and then they die the third year. But then it sends up more canes every year. So every year you just hopefully have some second year canes that are going to get fruit. But this particular variety gives fruit on second and third year. Here's my strawberry, I can't think of the word. Strawberry bushes, strawberry area. So tons of strawberries here. My 3-year-old just has a blast coming out here every day and hunting for strawberries, or foraging for strawberries as she calls it. A couple garlics. I'm letting one of them grow the little stipe, whatever it's called. I'm going to experiment with trying to grow the little bulblet things. Tons of runners on the strawberries this year. So each plant is putting off like 5 or 6. And I know some people tell me to cut them off. Last year I didn't cut them off, and I went from having 2 plants to having like 30 plants. So I like having 30 plants, so I'm going to let them all do that because I want to have 300 plants. We'll see how that turns out, if I regret it or not. But the thought is to expand this section out to like encompass that whole area so that we have tons of strawberries that we can share with friends. Cherry trees are doing great. So I'm in Missouri now, and I wasn't sure how cherries would do. I had people tell me that cherry trees don't do very well. But of course, when people tell me that, I just do it anyway, just as an experiment, and they seem to be doing pretty decent. I haven't got fruit yet, so I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, I'll let everybody know. But they seem to be growing really well. And I suspect that I'll have fruit next year. We'll see. Hazelnut. So the hazelnut's doing really well this year. Last year it barely grew. And that seems to be the pattern with my fruit trees. Like the first year they just barely grow. But I'm guessing they're probably doing a lot of root growth, is what I've heard. And so this year you can kind of see it's just really taken off. This is a wild plum. This is a grafted apple. So if you watched one of my other videos, I did some whip and tongue grafts. Get the camera to focus here. So that's my whip and tongue graft, my little Z graft. So it was a crabapple rootstock, and then on top, on this one was a gala. And so these are my source plants. So I got gala, I got Fuji, and Mutsu, I think. Yeah, Mutsu. And so this one's a little bit of a Frankenstein tree here, because I have the crabapple rootstock, and then I did one of each. So Mutsu, gala, Fuji, all on one tree. So I suspect that's going to look very interesting once this thing grows into its area, and I have 3 different colored apples on that one tree. That's going to be awesome. You can kind of see those graft unions if you look real close. I don't know if anyone's watching that's interested, but graft union, graft union, graft union. Here's another one with 2 varieties. And something really sad happened over here yesterday. So the wind was blowing, which is why I reinforced the branches, and this guy just sheared right off. So I lost my gala scion. It was huge. Like, if you look over here and you compare that, it's almost as big as my wrist. I don't know what that is. 3 inches maybe. But that one sheared off. So I'm pretty sad about that. And so I reinforced them, put a screw through them, just to make sure they have a little bit more connection to that trunk. I don't want to lose those. So again, doing pretty well. Another grafted. You can even see the difference in color in the bark on that. So gala on top and crabapple on the bottom there. But these are growing fast. I ended up having to like break the tips off of them because they were just like reaching for the sky. So very, very aggressive rootstock, which is, I know some people are against aggressive / invasive things, but as long as you pay attention to them and don't let them do anything crazy, like in this case, I'm just exploiting that growth habit. Ooh, and this is cool too. If you look here, those little dangling eggs. If you're watching this, see if you know what that is. I'm about to say it. Those are lacewings. So if you got that correct, extra bonus points. This is a pear tree grown from a seed. A neighbor had some of these growing in their yard, and they gave me one. So last year it was tiny. This year it's a lot bigger. Black gem blackberry. Another there. So over here, see if you know what those are. That's right, those are potatoes. And they're flowering already, so that means I'm getting close to being able to harvest. And then a bunch of onions and romaine lettuce. Ooh, this rose bush, I love it. So I did a cloning rose bush video. So this is one of my cloned branches from my cloned rose bush. So I put one of those in the ground. Beautiful color. So they have like that orange color on them. And then that one has, like when they mature, they get like that purple, no, not purple, pink looking tips on them. So that's what the flowers look like when they open all the way. Ooh, and guess what's popping up here? That is asparagus. So I had some asparagus seeds that I just kind of scattered in here and forgot about them, and looks like they're popping up. Lots of potatoes, more strawberries, tons of strawberries. Most of my everbearings are on this side, so they're a little bit smaller and pointier. I had some people telling me that the everbearing are a little bit bigger, but I'm finding the opposite to be true. My June bearings are massive, and my everbearings are a lot smaller. But the good thing about everbearings, as you probably know, you get fruit all year long. So anyway, another peach tree. And then over here I have in the middle of that a willow tree and a little tomato bush right next to it, grown from seed. This whole row of corn, believe it or not, is popcorn. So I had a bag of popcorn, like $1 bag that you, I don't know, like a half-pound bag of popcorn kernels that you're supposed to put into a popcorn machine. So I wanted to do an experiment, so I tore open the corner of the bag and just kind of walked along this row and just poured corn seeds as thinly as I could. Like, I didn't think I poured that many. Like, I was trying to make sure they were spread apart, I mean. And as you can see, there's just tons of them. I might have to thin this out. Tons of little corn plants. Tomato, similar thing here. I just kind of tore open the bag of tomato seeds and just like walked and tried to sprinkle them as lightly as I could. And then I kind of put mulch in between. I think that one was cantaloupe. This one has a whole bunch of grass mixed in with romaine lettuce, a row of carrots and broccoli, and I found a few other bags of seeds, and I was just kind of sticking them out here just to see what would happen. Soybeans. So usually I don't do things this organized. You know, I like to do the whole chaos thing. My wife really likes rows, so I kind of compromised and did chaotic rows. So I have the row shape, and I just kind of went nuts with a few different types of seeds. Yay, some of the pumpkin seedlings are coming up over here. Here's another example of the difference in scions. So these ones are kind of shaded out. On this particular tree, I didn't cut down the main one until this last winter. So these are shaded, so they grew very slow, but they did grow all last year. And then this year I planted some new ones, and so those are growing too. Similar story here. This one is apple, and that one's pear. Crab apple and the Bradford pear rootstocks. Let me see what's happening here. I think those are suckers. I don't think those are grafted. Anyway, there's a grafted scion right here. And then I have a Riparian grape, which is the wild grape here in Missouri, kind of growing up there. So I was going to share the space. I wanted to try experimenting with creating a variety of Riparian grapes that's decent, since it grows so aggressively here. There's no reason to fight nature, I guess is my plan. This is called Royal Empire. So this one didn't grow very much last year, and so I wasn't able to harvest any scions off of it. But without this tree, I chopped down over the winter so I could use it as a rootstock. And so this is finally getting sunlight, so it's growing like crazy, long story short. So it might be a couple years before that one actually yields fruit. I think I talked about all these. Oh, I was going to show some of the fruits. So this gala over here is actually fruiting, which is exciting. It actually had a lot of flowers, but only a few of them survived. We had a real late frost. If you're from Missouri, you know what I'm talking about. We had that crazy random late frost. But some apples. I'm excited to see how they taste. They're growing pretty quick. And then I have some random garlics that I've kind of planted around here. Potato. And then I had a few extra strawberry plants when I was doing strawberries, and so I included some. I forgot about which mulch piles I put some of these things in, so I accidentally mowed a few of them. There's a lot of things growing there. And then I have a mulberry bush right here. It actually has some mulberries this year. If you look back here, yay, mulberries. I wasn't sure if I was going to get fruit. I was kind of gambling on that. This was wild, just kind of popped up here. So I cut this tree down 2 years ago, and a random mulberry seedling just popped up here. And so I'm like, what the heck? So I let it grow, and sure enough, it's female. Believe it or not, you can actually get fruitless mulberries. Ooh, these are really dark. I might try one of these. See if that's any good. So there's the berry, very small. You can tell it's a wild type because the wild types are very small. It's a little tiny berry. Wow, that is delicious. All right, that tree gets to stay. It has that characteristic mulberry flavor. All right, so here's my mulch pile. This is where I get my compost / mulch. And when I say compost, if I want quote unquote compost, I kind of dig down there and use that as potting material. And I have 2 piles here. So this pile is my favorite now. So that pile is more coarse, like wood chipper mulch. This pile, however, is stump grinder mulch, which is actually nice because whether they realized it or not, they were inadvertently mixing the wood chips from the grinder with the native clay soil. And so this is like the perfect soil, in my opinion, that's been formed by that process. So this is my vineyard back here. So elderberry right here. Another elderberry. And again, these were cuttings last year. They're doing great. A whole bunch of raspberries over here. Man, these raspberries are wonderful. This was a heritage type. And I got this plant, believe it or not, for like $5 at Walmart in the clearance section last year. So I'm super happy it's doing well. That's a heritage. Back here I have an ARC 45 that's kind of going nuts, which is a type of blackberry. Another elderberry. That's ARC 45. Oh, and here's another heritage. So that one isn't doing as well, but it's still growing. Both of them I got from the clearance section. This one's growing real slow. That one's just growing insane. But randomly some suckers popped out all the way over here. Elderberry. All right, I'm gonna go back here. It's like my little secret garden, so don't tell anybody. Not that you couldn't just figure it out, you know. I have this little bridge right here of grapes, and I'm trying to create. And so when you first come in, it's semi-shaded right now, but in the middle of the day you get some sun. Clear sky up here. So right here I have a whole bunch of onions I planted last year. And these are like those little those bags you can get from the hardware store. You'll have like 100 little tiny bunch of mini onion bulbs. And I planted them last year and forgot about them. And I think I accidentally mowed them. And then this last spring they just popped up massively, and so I mulched them up, and looks like they're going nuts. I'm gonna actually let these ones go to seed so I can scatter onion seeds everywhere. Got some bee balm, more raspberries, more blackberries. These are a thornless type. I can't remember which type they are. Probably one of the is it Freedom or Traveler or something. Blackberries. These right here are currants. Most of the berries are green, so they're still growing. Some blackberries, more currants, whole bunch of grapes. Grapes are doing decently well. This is a cutting that I actually took from this one. So this one's doing great, and apparently that cutting's working because the leaves are indicating that it's growing really well. So grapes are super easy. Watch my other videos if you're curious about grapes. You just kind of stick them in the ground and they do their thing. It's growing real well. And you'll notice I use a lot of mulch. If you're worried about weed competition and nutrients and fertilizing and all that other nonsense, just put some mulch down. Most places you can get mulch for free. There's a mulberry, another mulberry. This one I might actually butcher back. I don't really want this thing shading out my garden. This is actually a tiny little volunteer, believe it or not, 2 years ago. And that's like 4.5 inches around, that one on the left. So it's pretty impressive how tall this thing grew that quickly. All right, more grapes, more blackberries, more grapes, a whole bunch of asparagus. Man, I love how pretty those asparagus are. when they're all leafed out like that. Looks almost like a fern. Whole bunch of blackberries. These are my buddy's blackberries that kind of invaded. Some carrots. So this should be a lot of seeds. I'm also excited about that. So I mentioned that I chaos seeded carrots everywhere, and so that's one of those seeds that ended up being that huge plant. It's going to make a whole bunch of seeds. So another carrot plant. And these 2 grapes are doing great. Mint, more grapes. Some sheet mulching. Need to cover that up better with mulch. So I have a lot of the chewy boxes. Instead of throwing them away, I've been kind of putting them out here and covering them with mulch just to use that organic material and produce kind of less recycle or whatever. Another grape, another grape. So I got a huge variety of grapes. They're mostly Vitis labrusca back here, which is like the fox grapes that they make Welch's grape juice out of. And so there's just a bunch of different varieties. Another blackberry. Some strawberries back here that I forgot about. And some more garlic. All right, so now I'm in my backyard section. And again, you can watch this on double speed if you're still with me. Awesome. Bonus points. This is mostly, honestly, from my records to kind of keep track of what it did last year. But elderberry, some mulberry, raspberry. And if you don't know this, you can kind of tell by the leaves. You'll have like the green on top, but then you'll have like the whitish color underneath. And that's dead giveaway that it's raspberry. I had someone ask me a while ago how you told them between raspberry and blackberry. And that's one of the ways. The leaves are actually a different shape as well. But if you don't feel like memorizing leaf shapes, just flip the leaf over. And if it looks kind of brambly, you know it's a raspberry. Here's one of my crabapple scions. I haven't grafted this one yet. I'm still letting it grow a little bit before I graft. It seems to be doing decent. So this is an experimental area. I'm putting crab apples and pears and things in this area, and then just hoping they'll be able to outcompete the native vegetation. Blackberry, a whole bunch of hackberries and catalpas, maple, more catalpa, a whole bunch of random stuff. This is a nectarine tree. Looks like it's doing better this year. Last year it was just really suffering. Another nectarine tree. Yeah, the center's kind of just shriveling up, so this just isn't a very good spot for a nectarine tree. There's just not very much light. I think the dogs run into it pretty often. This back section, we used to have people walk by pretty often before they put the security camera over here, and so the dogs would be back here stomping and everything when they're barking at people coming by. Another crabapple tree that seems to be doing pretty decent. This is I've kind of been letting this one have like a bush form. I haven't decided if I'm going to prune it into a tree shape or just have a big bush with a whole bunch of different grafted branches. So here's some honeysuckle. I love the smell of the honeysuckle. I've started to get some raspberries established back here. So what I'm kind of doing is selecting back the honeysuckle as the raspberry grows. So a big trick in gardening that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of people like to have the soil just empty. And that's a terrible idea in my opinion, because then the soil dies. You always want to have a living root in your soil. And even if you think the things that are growing are weeds, they're actually feeding the soil. There's interaction happening when the plants are alive, where they're doing photosynthesis, and then they create a relationship with bacteria in the soil, and they exchange nutrients with that bacteria in the soil. So they feed the bacteria sugar, and in exchange the bacteria grows and enriches the soil, and then also delivers some of the minerals in the soil to the root system. So you get some nice symbiosis and just life in general in the soil. So that's what you want. You don't want to kill the soil. I know some people are like, that's easy to say, but it's truly what I've seen with fertility. I mean, you keep the soil alive and the plants just grow faster. Like, look at this example over here. So I mowed this flat. This is all elderberry. And they're already 6, that one right there is 7 feet tall. And we're only in May, we're not even in June yet. And these will continue growing until August. Dogs kind of love flying through here, so you can see some of the little broken ones. Oh, that's okay. Generally, seems to be doing decently. That's all elderberry. So I should still get a decent harvest. But yeah, dogs do complicate things because they're dogs and they're crazy and fun. And I think the last thing that I'm excited about over here is all these boysenberries. So this entire row right here is all boysenberries. So last year it grew decently. So there's a little bit of boysenberries that are developing this year. But the plant has grown so much more this year. Like there's like 10 times more growth this year than I got last year. So even though I will get some boysenberries, you can kind of see them over here. Oh, I just realized I was out of focus. Lots of green boysenberries here. All boysenberries going nuts. I'll probably weave these into the fence. That seemed to work last year. I think I only had like 2 or 3 branches to weave. And it looks like this year I'm gonna have tons. And I'm so excited about it. Because I love boysenberries. I think that's my in my opinion, the best flavored blackberry is boysenberry. My wife loves Marionberry the most, and I tried growing her Marionberries over here, but I realize now the Marionberries don't really deal with cold very well because they're growing. The problem is though, the canes from last year all died. So hopefully it was a fluke. I'm going to try it again. And hopefully this year I'll have some canes that survive and produce Marionberries next year. But they got pretty shocked by our negative days that we had. We had a couple of those. I mean, usually our winters aren't too bad. Like the year before, I think it only got down to like 3 or 4 degrees. But we actually went negative this year in Fahrenheit. And so there's some varieties apparently, including Marionberries, of brambles that don't like negative temperatures. That's most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. I know this video is going to be crazy long, so if you stick with it, you're amazing. Don't feel bad if you want to double speed it. I love these black walnut trees. I know they're just a real pain in the rear because they're just so big, but like no joke, each of these trees will drop me 200 pounds of walnuts. And I saved the top for one of my wheelbarrows, a wheelbarrow that broke, and then I completely filled the thing up with walnuts, and I cured them in the sun. So it's a great way of having food storage. You know, we don't really need it right now because we have grocery stores, but I'm realizing that each year I can just harvest a bunch of walnuts, leave them in the garage just in case anything bad happens, and if an emergency happens and we can't get food because the grocery store is closed down or something, I'll have something. So, big giant black walnut. Another big giant black walnut. They don't really look like they're that big until you like walk up to them and you can't even put your arms around them. Like not even halfway. The dogs are mad that I'm not playing with them, so I'm gonna go play with the dogs. Thanks for joining me in the chaos.